are live. Another live edition of Unfiltered coming your way right here, right now. This will officially go down as episode number 295. And your scorecard, you can jump on board 24/7, 365. It's easy, people. Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcasts. Of course, you can get to us on the artist formerly known as Twitter, X, if you will, at Casey Stern. Jump into the bio. You'll get all the information there, how to follow us on Instagram. We're newly over there. At Unfiltered with Casey Stern. You could also get on the YouTube channel, like, subscribe, follow, tell your friends at Unfiltered with Casey Stern there as well. As always, courtesy of the Believe Network, presented by our good friends at Bet Online. Lot to get to. Going to bounce around some Major League Baseball here tonight, and also want to hit the New York Knicks, my Knicks, 2 seed, and talk a little bit about and wax poetic about the fact that Jalen Brunson is still not getting somehow the credit that he deserves for carrying this franchise into a new path and carving a new way and doing it with all the issues that have gone against that basketball team. So we'll get into a number of things here today, as usual. If you're with us live, you can chat along the way and I'll conversate with you. If not, never miss an opportunity. Do it belated. If you're listening, Apple, Spotify, ever get your podcast, jump on board, Twitter, X, get to me, whether in a direct message or reply. I try and get back to each and every one of you. So please continue to do that. And in the YouTube comments as well. Before we get started, we always get started with the fact that we are presented by Bet Online, your number one source for your sports betting needs. They've got all the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports, baseball, basketball, boxing, golf, and more. Continue to be the fastest and easiest way to get your wagers. Live betting, favorite casino and card games. They're all available right now, right from your phone. So come on, get over to the website, use your mobile device, but sign up today. Get in on the action and use the promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. It'll give you a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. It is Bet Online where the game starts. As I get started here as a kid, growing up, getting into the game of Major League Baseball, my favorite player to watch was Dr. K, Dwight Gooden. Every time that you would go to the stadium and he would pitch, and I said this when Pedro signed there, that it was the first time that it felt like it was like when Doc was on the mound. It was a party. It was a target on the back for when the other teams would come in. It was a different atmosphere. You knew you were going to see something special. The way that he pitched and the electricity that he brought and all the Ks and everything else, it was different. And as a kid, it helped me fall in love with the game of baseball in the 80s. So thank you to Dwight Gooden. What an unbelievable thing that was today at Citi Field. Another one coming up, what is it, June 1, I think it is, or early June for Darryl, and great to see him and in good spirits there. Love hearing Dwight Gooden say, quote, "I'm always a Met," after getting booed when referring to going to the New York Yankees. But there are certain days where in covering the sport and in watching it, I get FOMO. And as a fan, more than anything else, Islander playoff runs when I couldn't be there in 20 and 21 for sure, as an example. But this is one of these times where big-time FOMO for me, wishing that I was there. Just because of how great that would have been to be a part of that and to, even though he's not going to hear you, say thank you for what that did for me in my childhood and in falling in love with the game of baseball. Number 16, Dwight Gooden, up where it belongs. So congratulations. By the way, the Mets may be back to where they belong. I've been saying they're going to be an up-and-down team. They're going to drive you nuts. They're going to have mediocrity. Some of it going to be good, as Armand points out, and thank you for jumping in and like, subscribe, and tell all your friends. He says, what a gem of a performance from Jose Buto, who, by the way, on Doc's Day, strikes out 9. And they've had some good performances. They've won 3 series in a row. They've bounced back, but they're going to go the other way, too. This is kind of what this team's going to be. They're going to win 8 out of 10. They're going to lose 7 out of 10. They're going to drive you nuts. I've said this forever. If you root for really bad teams, and we'll get to the White Sox, maybe they're different. That might be a category of its own, being fair. Because as I put in the title here, and I'm going to title the podcast this way when I put it out on Apple, Spotify, and everywhere else, White Sox need an exorcism. So maybe that's a different level of bad. But if you're for a bad team, you kind of know. You know they're not going to be great. You don't have to invest. You can watch. You can look at young players. You can get excited. And it kind of is what it is. But when you root for a team that's mediocre and up and down and 500 and the muffin tops, as I like to say in the standings, just hanging over 500, anywhere in that midst, it is going to drive you bananas because they're going to look so good and then it's going to look oh so bad and vice versa. So don't worry, what's going up right now, Met fans, about to come back down. I'm just telling you. And then go back up again and come back down. But albeit good to see Frank Lindor a couple of hits today, average now up to 129. So there's that. First hit of his career for Jackson Holliday of what will be many. He snaps an 0 for 13 with 9 strikeouts, helps the Orioles get a win. Speaking of snapping streaks, Brewers had come in at 10-3 with runs, 7 or more runs in 6 of their last 7. That does not happen in this game. Stymied, only 5 innings. Corbin Burns, even though he only allowed 2 runs, but then the bullpen able to pick it up, Cano and company, and the Orioles win their 9th game of the season. There's been a lot of parity early in this sport. You got a lot of teams where it's like the Blue Jays won today, and I think maybe they're a game under 500. You got the Astros are sitting there with their win today. They're at 6-11. We know they're better than that. Had injuries and hiccups. Verlander, Framber Valdez, to name a couple. Things haven't gone right, but we know who they are. But you got a lot of teams that are kind of 8-7, 7-8. Not sure Philadelphia's in that. There's a lot that come to mind that you're just not sure what you're getting. Giants, as soon as they kind of step up and you're like, okay, and I like them this year, especially if you look at the way Hicks is pitching and some of the things offensively that are starting to develop a little bit. But Blake Snell gives up 7 runs today, gets his old team the Rays. And, it makes you think, and they're at 6-9, I think it is now in the standings. And, okay, they're another team that's kind of, I can't figure it out. I'll say this, though, on Blake Snell. And you go back podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I was talking about this with Jim Duquette in the pod that he was on the last time he was on this show. These guys like Jordan Montgomery and Blake Snell and others who don't have training camps, don't go to spring training, regardless of how long it is, and it's too long and too many PFPs, and they all can't wait to go golfing and all of that on all those days they're in Florida and Arizona, and I get it, I covered it, I know it. But regardless of all that, you could simulate whatever with your agents as you wait to kind of sign on the dotted line late and then try and kind of speed up and get in there, but you're never going to be ready. It's not going to be the same. And I hate to say this, it's not a throwaway. It's not some cop-out, but April for Blake Snell, kind of like spring training. He will figure it out. He's going to be just fine. The issues with him, whether or not you wanted to give a contract, was does he go deep enough into games, and is he consistent enough and you feel healthy enough where you're going to lock into him long term. We're not wondering whether or not he's good enough. Hey, by the way, just go look what he did in that division a year ago. We know he's good enough. He's going to be better than that. The Giants will be better than that. So a lot of teams kind of topsy-turvy, little up and down, not sure what you got as we get out of the open of the gates here in this Major League Baseball season. It's been kind of that way. Curious, what team do you root for and how do you feel? Are they better or worse than you thought they were going to be coming into the season? Your thoughts, get them to me. Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcast. If you're listening there, get over to the artist formerly known as Twitter. X, if you will. Jump at me at Casey Stern. Give me a follow and let me know your thoughts. I want to hear from you. Obviously, if you're on the Facebook side, you're sitting there on YouTube, we're everywhere. Unfiltered with Casey Stern, Instagram as well. I want to hear from you there as well. There are certain teams that are better or worse or kind of right about where you thought. New York Yankees certainly have been on the better portion of that. Had a chance to sit there and move to 13-3, get a hiccup, give up 3 runs in the 10th, lose to the Guardians, and a little bit of a crazy stunner at the end of that game, close their series on Sunday. But you got to like everything you're seeing from New York. I've talked a lot about that. Anthony Volpe, another 3 hits today. He's now up to 386 on the season, off to a great start. Cabrera, the bottom of the lineup, driven in 11 runs. They're going to be just fine. Their biggest question still is one that hasn't been answered yet, and it will at some point, and that is when and what version and what level of Garrett Cole are they going to get, because that will determine just how nasty they can be, not only to the Orioles in that division, but to the rest of the American League and deeper into the postseason as a World Series contender. These are all things that the Chicago White Sox are not. Chicago White Sox are 2-13, people, to open the season. You may not know if you haven't played them and beaten them yet because they're so bad. They just get a box score. They don't even get highlights. That's how you know you're bad. When you get, and they call into business the shot sheets or the highlights, and they just get a score. They get 20 seconds because nobody damn cares. They are 2-13 to open the season. That is a franchise worst. By the way, I think this was today, right? The White Sox fans will have to, not old enough to know, but maybe you read 125 anniversary today. God bless you, happy birthday, and your worst franchise start ever. They're 2-13. They are just decrepit. If you're a White Sox fan, I got to hear from you because I don't know what the hell you do. You're going to fire Pedro Grifol because clearly, look, they got injuries. We know Jimenez, we know Moncada, we know Robert. They're not healthy. They already had robbed Peter to pay Paul, sent Cease out, not been good enough. And I get all of that. I get all of that. I understand that they're not healthy. If you are a White Sox fan right now, you are beside yourself and do not know what to do. And I don't know what to tell you. They're 2-13, franchise worst start. They're by far the worst team in baseball. It is an unbelievable level disgrace. Outscored 27-5 in the sweep of the Reds. They got 34 total runs all year. You got a manager who doesn't know beside himself what to do in Pedro Grifol because he certainly doesn't have a handle of things on its own, just being fair because the team not performing well, even with the guys on the field. And then you got the Roberts and the Jimenez and the Moncadas and those who are injured and are not there at all. But we can go back all the way to the hiring of Tony La Russa and 1 million other things and talk about all that has failed and gone by the wayside from this ownership and from the management because it has been terrible. These fans, you White Sox fans, deserve better. It is an abomination. And I don't know what the hell you do. Firing the manager, what's that going to do? They're going to, all of a sudden, they're going to try harder, play better. Have you seen this roster? What are they going to do? The only thing you could do is get guys healthy enough to hope to ship everybody out to break it all the way down. But if this isn't all the way down, just how far down can you go? Because it seems like you've gone down deep enough with this 2-13 disgrace of a start. This is not, you're just off to a bad start. It's early in the season. Don't worry. It is DEFCON 5-1. Can't remember from War Games which one's worse. Sorry. It's like not knowing a grade 4 sprain or a 2 sprain, and I get those wrong too. My apologies. Whatever the worst one is, where you are sitting there on the ledge and you can't freaking figure out why you root for the team, and you're asking a therapist you just paid $200 an hour to try and tell you what in the hell is going on, that's where you are. Sorry, and I do feel for you. Terrible. White Sox fans want to hear from you. I feel better. Now, look, I've been there. I felt that way as a Knicks fan before. I have felt that way many times as a Knicks fan before. Maybe not that bad at 2-13, but I can go back in the Wayback Machine. Maybe that's the case. Usually just disappointments where you think things are going to be better, and they're not. But this is way better than I could have even thought. If you would have told me when OG came in and played as well as OG Anunoby did, that he would miss all those games, you're going to have no Julius Randle, and now you're not going to have him at all, and we get that. And you are going to be sitting there in a 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, I would have never, ever believed you. And there are several reasons that are part of this. Dante DiVincenzo and what he's done. Josh Hart and the way he plays and the culture that he provides. Tom Thibodeau, who has always been underrated as a coach and always too much talk about other stuff outside of his coaching. And he's a big part of this too. But if you are a Knicks fan, you understand what some people in the game of basketball do not. Some pundits around the NBA just do not. And that is that Jalen Brunson has completely changed this franchise. Jalen Brunson, who people thought was not worth the money. Jalen Brunson, who wasn't really a starting point guard. He's not a star. He's not tall enough. He's not this. He's not that. Let me tell you what the hell he is. Jalen Brunson is a certified, legitimate, most valuable player candidate in the entirety of this league. He has been as good as any point guard in the NBA, in the Eastern Conference, and what he has done is carry this club. And he's still not getting the flowers he deserves. And that is a joke. Because I can tell you as a Knicks fan, watching this team, they have no business being in a 2 seed, especially with all the injuries, and yet they're there. Thank you, Jalen Brunson. West Virginia Redlegs gets in on the Reds. Said the Reds went 3-18 a few years ago. It was miserable. And I remember that start. And that was where, remember, the ownership went on radio. Well, of course, you remember. They went on local radio in the CINCI and NATI Cincinnati. And they, oh, no, we're not we're not punting and we're, all that stuff. And acted like it was, they were actually trying. But they weren't trying, clearly. They weren't trying. On Jalen Brunson, and you're right. Carlos gets in. He says that he won't get it. So sad. No, he's not going to get it. You're not going to win the MVP. And look, I'm okay with, you want to say he doesn't, is he second? Is he third? You want to act like he's not in the category? I thought most valuable player is supposed to be about a team that finishes at a high level in the standings and a guy carries them. Now, to be fair, being transparent, and I don't anymore, but I had a vote for NBA MVP for 3 years. I wish I still had it this year. I wish I did. And I remember at the time, I don't remember what vote it was, but there was one where people were getting mad at me, and I found myself in tweets because they eventually they put him out, and people going ahead and breaking down, why the hell did he vote for this guy? I would have been that guy that okay, the local guy from New York who sat there and had voted for Jalen Brunson. Because I'm telling you that he deserves way more street cred than he getting for that award. If you're a White Sox fan, I say this again, please. If you're old enough and don't drive and don't leave the house, get safe on the couch and pour yourself a cocktail, or maybe 2. Maybe more than that, depending on how stiff the drinks are, because that is an abomination at current. Grats to Doc. Wish I could have thanked him there myself as a fan for all the moments growing up. Good to see the Mets get a 3 series wins now in a row. Grats to Jackson Holiday in his first hit. And to the Knicks on the 2 seed. And to you for being where you are. Now, do yourselves a favor. Actually, it's me. It's selfish. I'm lying. Do me a favor. Get over right now. Instagram. We're kind of new there. It's like MySpace, and Tom's our only friend. You can help us out. Tell your friends. Add Unfiltered with Casey Stern. Give me a follow. Then go to the YouTube channel. Type in a little search, the magnifying glass, Unfiltered with Casey Stern. Boom. Like, subscribe, and get in there and tell all your friends. And, of course, visit us here, if you're here now, on Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcast, where we at Unfiltered will see you soon. A lot coming up this week, some of which I not totally finalized yet, so I'm going to wait. I will say, and I'm looking forward to this on Wednesday's show, Eric Hosmer will be with me talking about his new podcast. We'll get into his days with the Royals and a lot more. One of my favorite people in covering the game. Hos will join me here on Wednesday. We've got a lot still to come. You could jump in. Your comments and questions are always appreciated right here at Unfiltered, where we will see you next time, courtesy